What's up, everybody? David Wilson here, and I'm very happy to get started this morning on a new series in our live streaming adventures, where we start to build a custom Emacs configuration from scratch. So Emacs, if you don't already know, but I assume you probably have heard of it if you're here, is well, some would call it a text editor, but I consider it more of a complete productivity environment. It does the basic text editing capabilities, but it provides a platform for building pretty much anything you would want to do whenever messing with stuff on a computer. Writing code, or organizing your life, or just managing your computer in general. So I think that it's really interesting to dive into how to configure Emacs from the ground up, because you learn a lot more from doing it that way, as opposed to using a prepackaged configuration system like Spacemacs or Doom Emacs, etc. So my background with Emacs is that I started using it probably on and off since about 2007, but I didn't really get into Emacs until maybe a year and a half ago, where I really got deep into customizing my configuration and trying to figure out what I could do to just make my own full workflow using Emacs. So at this point, I basically live in Emacs all day. I use EXWM as my window manager. I use mostly Emacs packages for everything except for the things that I can't do that with, applications I need to use for work, etc. So I think it's going to be really interesting for us to dive into both how I've configured my system and also how you could make your own configuration from scratch using similar techniques. So this is live, obviously, so if you are here in the chat, please say hello, and please ask questions anytime if you're interested in any more details about anything that I cover here. I figure we'll probably do a lot of streams about this because there's a lot of things you can do with Emacs. So we're going to start just from the basics. We're going to start from the ground up, and then over time we will probably experiment with different packages based on what people ask about, and try to build a full workflow using Emacs. So to kick things off, I'll go over my configuration a little bit, just to sort of show you what my world looks like on a day-to-day basis, and then we can jump into starting from scratch on a new configuration. So whenever Emacs starts up, or actually, let's take one step further back. Whenever I log in to my desktop environment, it boots up Emacs. Emacs takes up the full screen. It uses EXWM to manage the screen and manage any X Windows applications that are being run inside of that. If you're using Windows or Mac OS, unfortunately, you can't use EXWM, but this should still be interesting to you from a sort of conceptual perspective of what's possible with Emacs. So you can see I'm here in eShell, which is basically a built-in terminal emulator, sort of, in Emacs. It's pretty powerful. We can go into that in another time. Hi, James. Good morning. So from this point, usually I will navigate to a particular project. So let's just open up a file here. So I can hit find file and then go into the README for this project. And we can use dired to navigate around the file system. So I have a key binding set up for that, where I can pop around through different folders. It's very easy to do that. I've got custom key binding set up so that it's easy to navigate with them style keys like HJKL, etc. Using Magit for Git functionality. If I go to my .files repo, you can see that we can pull up Magit. You get really nice things like history list, or staging of chunks, or pretty much anything that you would want to do with Git repository. Magit is a super powerful package, and I feel like if you've never seen it before, this may be one of the major things that turns you on to Emacs forever, at least even just for this functionality alone, because it's super powerful. It saves me a lot of time. So, I mean, that's not really a great run through, I guess, of what you can do. You can see that I actually have an X Windows window here on another workspace. So I have the repo for this project we're going to do. And I can switch windows pretty easily. I actually use separate browser windows for every quote-unquote tab that I have open, and I can use Emacs buffer switching commands to switch between those, which is pretty nice. So anyway, if you get really into Emacs, you can go really far and basically customize your whole computing life, which is pretty cool. I'll quickly bring up my personal Emacs configuration so you can see what that looks like. I've gone with a literal configuration format where we build our configuration files out from org mode files. And if you haven't heard of org mode, it's basically like it's an organizer, but it's also kind of like a markup language for writing documents, and it can do live code evaluation within blocks inside the file. So it does a lot of things. It's super powerful. That's another one of these features that you'll hear a lot of people talk about whenever they talk about how cool Emacs is. In this case, we just have a whole file set up here with a bunch of different sections for all of the stuff that's in my configuration. And as you can see, there's a lot in here. But even though there's a lot in this single file, it's easy for me to manage because of all the headers. You can navigate through headers pretty easily. And a lot of the configuration blocks don't actually get loaded until they're needed. So some command from the package gets run or a mode gets activated. So it's been working pretty well for me in this case. So at some point in the future, we'll get to this point of using org mode to do our system configuration, our Emacs configuration. But for now, we're just going to stick with a plain Emacs Lisp file instead. James X asks, is this Linux? Yes, this is indeed Linux. It's a distribution of Linux called GNU Geeks, and I will also go into that in more detail one day because it actually fits in pretty heavily into my workflow. But for now, we'll just focus strictly on Emacs. So without further ado, how about let's try to get something started here. So we're going to be using Emacs 27.1 since that came out recently, and thankfully my distro has now got that working, so I get the benefit from that. Yes, Pepsi says, nice timing, just installed Doom Emacs and EXWM. Yeah, it's a good combination. I haven't really used Doom Emacs very much. I do use Doom Modeline and Doom themes, but Doom Emacs, I kind of like, before that got popular, I started working on my own configuration from scratch, so I never really got into that. I did use Spacemacs in the past, though, and that was pretty useful. So let's try to start Emacs without loading my own configuration. So we're basically going to be running Emacs in Emacs here. We're going to have a little bit of Emacsception, but it should work fine. We're going to run Emacs-Q, which I think inhibits startup. And since I do have an empty init el here, oh, I don't have an empty init el. We'll just touch it and make that there. So we'll say Emacs-Q init.el. Oh, I think we need to say load. Well, let's use the nice little help here. Oops. I think it's load path. Load. Okay, it's just -l. All right, so Emacs-Q-L init.el. And it's going to pop open a vanilla Emacs window. And yeah, so we're basically confronted with this white screen, and the text is super small because my screen is high DPI and the font isn't set correctly yet, so it's probably not very readable at the moment, but we're going to fix that. So if you've ever downloaded Emacs, so imagine this, like you've been looking around on, like, let's say Reddit on r/Emacs, or you're looking around at other people's, like, configurations or whatever, and or someone's video or something where you see them using a cool configuration. You probably saw like something looked really cool, looked nice and minimal like what I was showing you before, and then you go download Emacs, you're excited to start using it, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be really nice. Then you run Emacs for the first time, and you see this screen where you've got this kind of toolbar, and you've got the menu bar, and you've got this welcome screen with the weird old looking Emacs logo, and the colors are kind of crappy, and you're probably like, well, I don't know about this. This doesn't really look like my kind of tool. Well, thankfully, it's easy to turn a lot of this stuff off and then get to a more minimalistic view that you can start from that feels more like what you would expect from an editor, or at least if you like minimal editors like Vim, etc. So we're going to start with that. We're going to try to get rid of some of the stuff in the UI, and then we're going to try to set a theme that will allow us to, tolerate what we're seeing here, because this white screen is kind of blinding me right now. All right, so I'm going to back out of this real quick so that we don't have to look at that. And then I'm going to open up the init.el file. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because I have some bits of my configuration that can work for this. So I'm going to split this window, and I'll pull up my own configuration. So the first thing that I want to do, if I can get down here, is find my configuration settings for simplifying the UI. Apparently I've buried it. Let's see. Visual bell, I think it's there. Bell, yeah, okay. Match required. Give me a break. Obviously this morning I've lost the ability to type. So menu bar mode. Okay, great. Here we are. So one thing we can do, let's say the first thing we'll do is we'll just inhibit that startup message, which shows you sort of the landing page in Emacs. I mean, it could be useful for some people, but for me, I prefer to just start from like a blank screen as much as possible. And also, we're going to set some settings to remove some of these UI elements because we don't really want to see those anymore. So I'm going to get rid of some of this indentation since I'm copying it over from my own configuration. And then I think that's a good starting point. Actually, let's get rid of the menu bar also. And I'll throw in the visual bell. Since I tend to prefer not having my editor beep at me all day long whenever I like hit backspace at the beginning of a line or anything like that, I turn on visual bell so that I at least see a flash on the screen. Like, let's see, can I invoke it? Yeah, you see that the sort of the top and the bottom of the window are flashing right now whenever I hit backspace. That's what visual bell looks like. So some people find it annoying. I do find it more annoying on macOS because it throws up this huge like triangle thing in front of your face. But at least on Linux, it doesn't seem to be that annoying. So let's go with that for now. So we will split this window so I can go into eShell again. And then we can run Emacs with that init.el. And let's see what we get. And I'm going to full screen this so you can see it. All right, cool. So now we see that we are initially dropped into the scratch buffer. And there's no menu bar. There's no toolbar. And yeah, it's very, very minimal and simple presentation. So this is like, it only takes about 5-6 lines of code to get to the point where you have a very simple starting point. So next, we want to probably make the font size bigger so that we can actually tolerate using this. So I'm going to copy over some font settings I have. The values I'm using for the font size are going to seem really, really big, and that's just because I have to compensate for the DPI. For some reason, whenever I updated from Emacs 26.3 to 27.1, the font sizes I was using before don't really work anymore. I had to like double them at least to make them bigger. And I think the reason why is because they've changed text rendering engines from, I'm not sure what it was before, but now they're using Harfbuzz, which actually has improved the look of the text shapes a lot for me. So I find that to be a very nice improvement, despite the fact that I have to jack up my font size to a ridiculous level. So I'm going to search for face attribute here. And if you're wondering what I'm doing for searching right now, I'm using a package called Swiper, which allows me to hit a key binding to do fuzzy matching across all the lines in the file. It just makes it really easy to find things whenever I need to jump into that. So I found the wrong one, it seems. Let's go do that again. Face attribute to, yeah, let's go get these absurdly high number font sizes. I'm going to use the Fira Code Retina font for this. So we're going to drop here and we're going to paste this. All right, and I'm going to leave that as font size 280 because that's what I'm using right now. I'm not exactly sure why. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I have fly check running on my Emacs list buffers, and it's trying to help me out, but right now it's a little bit annoying. We'll just ignore that for now. So let's run this again. And I know some of you are probably thinking, wait, why don't you just like evaluate this configuration setting right in Emacs instead of continually reloading it? Well, I'm going to start doing that now. So now we can actually read what's on our screen, which is good. We've got the font size set. We've got a decent font configured. This looks much better. So now what I will do is use, well, okay. Let's start with opening the init file here so that we can start editing it and evaluating changes from this point. So, whoops. Since I use evil mode, which we'll get into later, is basically a Vim emulation mode, I might make some weird edits to the file every now and then because I'm like doing mode changes and stuff and forgetting that I don't have it. But we just ignore any kind of weird text that you see me type in. So what we want to do, first, let's see. I think is it like, I really wish I had Ivy here. Let me figure out what that command is supposed to be. So if I was to say theme, Load theme, enable theme. Let's see what, I think it's console theme. We want to pick one that's already built in. We'll go with Tango Dark. So this is just going to be temporary so that we don't have to look at this white screen the whole time. James says, at the end, we would love to know the top must-have packages you like for a new config. Yes, I'll definitely let you know what that is because I have some opinions there. I think that what we're going to try to do, at least in the first couple streams, is to get a configuration together that uses some of these top packages that I like, just because they are kind of like the best exemplar of what Emacs can be. So we will definitely get there. Load theme. Let's see. So if you've never used Emacs before, one thing that you really should learn about is the help commands, or describe commands, actually. They are bound to the Control H and then letters under Control H keys. And they will allow you to do things like describe variables in Emacs or describe functions in Emacs, and that becomes really helpful when you're trying to figure out how to do certain things, or if you want more information on what a variable or a function does. There's also a bunch of things for like describing font faces and describing modes and like a lot of stuff. So we'll get into some of that stuff later, but for now, I'm going to use this describe function to see what load theme does. Vincent says, also mention which packages one can do without. For example, a couple of years ago, I stopped using undo tree and haven't missed it. Yeah, this is something that is also important, and it changes over time. So yeah, I'll definitely talk about that as well. So remind me if I don't talk about it at some point. Okay, so I used describe function, and that I asked it about load theme, and now we've got this documentation here about what load theme does. So the first parameter is a theme, and then there is some optional parameters for no confirm, no enable. We're not going to worry about those parameters. The main thing is we want to say what theme we want to load. So I'm going to tell it Tango Dark. And now I'm going to try to run this code directly from this buffer by using Control X, whoopsie, invalid theme name Tango Dark. That's interesting. I didn't even try to execute it yet. So invalid theme name. All right, so let's see. If anybody knows the right way to call this, just shout it out in the chat. So I use something different than this. Oh, actually, in my configuration, I think I have something for this. So let's see, load theme. Okay, so sometimes you have to be aware of what type of parameter gets sent, and maybe describe function was going to tell me that, and I just didn't read it. But in this case, it wants a symbol instead of a string, and that's sort of a thing in Lisp languages. They have this concept of symbols where you can put an arbitrary string as a sort of like a language symbol. So we're going to put this single quote in front of this text without quotation marks around it, and then we're going to run it. Yes, thank you, Abdullah. So we are going to try to run this. I will select this text first, and then Control X, Control E, and that did not seem to run it. So let's just evaluate the buffer. So if you run Emacs, come on. I hit escape too many times because I'm used to eval mode and it's giving me trouble. So Emacs eval buffer. All right, now we do have the theme loaded. As you can see, we have a nice darker background. I'm not really like a big fan of this theme, but it's gonna get us where we need to go for the time being. So now we have our theme loaded up, and we have our UI looking a lot more minimal, which I think is a great start. So now, we could go into some of the built-in packages that Emacs has for doing certain things, which, there's a lot of built-in stuff. One of the things that a lot of people are surprised about whenever they use Emacs is that there's a whole lot of stuff already built in, and a lot of stuff that you probably don't really want. But I think the benefit is that if you don't really have internet access, or you don't really want to install custom packages, there's a lot of things already built into Emacs that you could use for certain things like completion frameworks, or thanks to DPassen1, yeah, CXE works after the S expression, thanks. There's a lot of things that are already here, but since we have this very healthy, lively ecosystem of Emacs packages on Melpa, which I'll show in a little bit, we'd be better off trying to find things that are out in the world that we can use that are like community packages that give us some really nice functionality. So to make it possible to use these packages, we're going to use another package called use package. And use package basically is it's kind of like a package manager. There's already a package manager built into Emacs. Like for instance, if we were to run list packages, this is a function that will just give you a list of all the possible packages that are in, oh boy. I think we have a lot of packages here that are from my own Emacs config, but that's okay. So basically any package that's available on, I believe this is ELPA. So there's like a sort of default package repository for Emacs called ELPA. And that has a lot of packages, but then there's one in the community called Melpa that has a lot more. So if you look for Emacs Melpa, then I think it's melpa.org. Yeah. And on this site, you can go and search around for things that you want to use. Like if you use a specific language you're trying to find packages for, like let's say Clojure. You can see, you can see that there's a lot of Clojure packages because, I think that there's some, affinity from Lisp users and Emacs. So since Clojure is a Lisp, I think a lot of Clojure users are Emacs fans. So we're going to use Melpa as a place to install packages from. But first of all, we just need to get use package set up. So I'm also going to steal some stuff from another configuration that I have here. And I'll explain what all this stuff does whenever I get it turned on. Okay. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do in our configuration for package loading is we're going to initialize package sources. I'm going to get rid of Melpa stable for now, since we're just going to use things from the main Melpa repository. First, we're going to require the package, which brings into the environment all the package management functions. I think that may be auto-loaded, but I just have this here as part of my configuration just in case. And this package archives is a variable that holds all of the different package repositories that you can pull packages from. And as you can see, when I hovered over this, or when I put my cursor on this variable name, it tells me down in the mini buffer that package archives is an A list of archives from which to fetch. So that's helpful. Now we call package initialize, which initializes the package system and then prepares it to be used. And we also check whether package archive contents is present. Because on the very first load, like let's say you install your computer from scratch and you wanted to pull down your Emacs configuration and install everything, you need to look to see whether there's already a package archive cloned to your computer or if there's nothing and you need to pull it down. So in this case, we're saying unless this archive exists, we're going to call package refresh contents, which refreshes the package list so that the future calls to package management functions know what packages you're talking about. And then we're going to try to install use package if it's not already installed. So this package installed p function, anytime you see a function in Emacs that ends in -p, that is like a predicate function, or it's basically a function that returns true or nil, I think. And the idea here is that you can use it to say, is this package installed? Like I want to see if this package with this particular name is here, and if it is, return true. And in this case, we're saying, unless it's already installed, we're going to use package install, which is built into Emacs, to install use package. And then once we install that, we're going to load it using require. So now at this point, we have use package available to us. And one extra thing that I'm going to do, which I don't know if it's by default or if I just did that in my own personal configuration, but we can find out very easily by saying Control HV for describe variable. And then I'm going to say use package always ensure. So we get this helpful window over on this side, and I think my panel is in the way. Let me kill that. Oh, I need to get out of this first. Kill panel. Okay. So use package ensure is a variable defined in use package ensure.el. Its value is nil. So that tells me that before running this, the default value of the variable is nil, which means it doesn't ensure packages by default. In use package terms, ensure means that whenever you evaluate a use package form, if ensure is set to true, then it will try to download the package whenever it evaluates that form, which you do want if you are loading up your config from scratch and you want to make sure that all of the packages that you're using are going to be downloaded and installed before they are run. So this will make sure that all of them will be ensured. So from this point, I want to like insert one little thing here that is not needed in normal configuration, but it's going to be very useful for us going forward. We're going to say, actually, let me evaluate all this stuff first before we move any further. So I'm going to run eval buffer again, and I'm using the Alt X command binding to call up in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. You can see I'm typing eval buffer, so I'm basically running the eval buffer command. And what that does is take the contents of the buffer, the Emacs list buffer, and evaluate them into the Emacs environment. So now what it's doing is, you can see, let me switch to the messages buffer. If I can get there. Messages. So in the messages buffer, this is actually a pretty useful thing. So if you ever see a message pop up in the mini buffer at the very bottom of the screen, and you're like, oh, it went by too fast, I don't know what actually happened. If you switch to the messages buffer, make sure to note that there's stars before and after. If you do that, you'll see the contents of all messages that were printed out before. So what we want to do right now is see what happened whenever we reload all of our configuration. So let's see. Okay, so you can see that it contacted Melpa to download the package repo there. And then it started downloading a bunch of packages that we need for our configuration from ELPA. Yeah, use packages coming from ELPA, etc. So now we'll move back to our init. Excuse me. I keep hitting escape and it's causing me problems here. We're going to switch back to init.el. And we're going to install a package called command log mode. And what that's going to do is pop open a buffer on the right-hand side of the screen, or pop open a window on the right-hand side of the screen that's going to show us all the key bindings that I'm using while I'm doing things, so that you can tell what key bindings I'm using without me telling you, and also what commands they run. That's actually a really useful package. So let's type use package command log mode, and I'm going to use Control X, Control E to evaluate that, and it can't have actually evaluated that fast. Let's see. Oh, maybe it did. Okay. So we're going to run command log mode. I think there's a command for showing the window, but I don't remember which one it is right now. So let's see. Yeah, let's do that. So one useful thing that you can do whenever you're trying to figure out how a package works, I mean, obviously you would go try to find documentation first, but the describe function or describe variable info panels that pop up will give you a link to the code where the thing was defined. And if you click on that, we can actually go into the code of the package, which ends up being really helpful for finding certain things. So if I want to toggle the command log buffer, it seems I need to run the CLM toggle command log buffer. So let's try that now. CLM toggle, toggle command log buffer. All right, there we are. And I'm going to move this over a little bit. And let's see if it actually will stick with us. Oh boy. Wow, did I just close Emacs? Okay, Control Z, don't do that. So let me get back in there because I think I just killed our Emacs. Or actually, probably what I did was suspend it, but I don't know how to get back from that. So we'll just go load it again. Okay. I'm going to go back to our init.el file. And let's see. One interesting thing about Emacs is that it will save stuff that you're doing behind the scenes just in case you crash your Emacs or kill it like I just did. So you can see down in the mini buffer here, it says, consider running Emacs recover this file. As you can see, all of our stuff that we added for use package is gone now. So let me try this. Recover this file. And recover autosave. It tells me about the date and time whenever the autosave file was created. I'm going to say yes because I want to recover it. So now we're back to where we were. And I'm going to save that now so we don't lose it again. Okay, so let's eval this buffer again. And now I'm also going to run global command log mode so that we can have this in every buffer. And then I'll do the CLM toggle command log buffer. Okay, here we are. So now if I do, if I put my cursor on this and say Control HF, you can see over in the right side hand side of the screen, I did Control HF, and then that's mapped to describe function. So this should be pretty helpful going forward. Okay, so now we have use package set up. We have our basic configuration going where we have something that looks fairly decent. Moving on from here, I think like the most important package that you can have installed after just the very, very minimum setup is one of the main two completion frameworks for Emacs. And those are Helm and Ivy. I'm not really going to go into details about what's different between them because there are a lot of similarities. They're just a sort of slightly different mentality in some ways. Personally, I prefer Ivy because I find it to look more minimalistic and it sort of fits into my workflow better. So this is what we're going to use here. However, if people are interested in looking into Helm, I'm more than happy in a future stream to change the configuration to use Helm instead so we can kind of compare and contrast those. And also, because Emacs is sort of like an open ecosystem, you can actually install both of them and use them simultaneously if you want to. Like if there's something that Helm does in one particular context you like better than what Ivy does, you can use them both and just run them in whatever context is necessary. So it's not like you have to pick one and stick with it. It's not like a Vim versus Emacs thing where they're completely incompatible. No, you can do everything all at the same time in Emacs, which is kind of great. So let's get Ivy set up. I'm gonna refer to my existing configuration example again because I do not remember the default setup for that. So I won't copy all this yet because it's not entirely necessary, but we will talk about some of these configuration options in a bit. So I'll paste this stuff in and save the file. And then I will try to run this. I'll eval the buffer, and this should cause Ivy to be installed. So you can see down in the mini buffer there were some commands. You can see like Ivy elisp files being evaluated. So now what we can do, I'm trying to see if we already have some binding set up for this. Yeah, okay, good. So we don't have any binding set up yet. So if I were to say Control X, Control F to find file, I'm still going to get the normal find file command that is bound by default in Emacs, and that just gives you really simple completion in the bottom of the window here. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do, I need to figure out how to cancel without Vim mode set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to remap the default binding for find file to use Ivy instead. In fact, I think that we can just make that easier by, I think there's a command you can run from console, I want to say, that does some automatic mapping or remapping of things, but I do not remember at the moment. Okay. Here's one thing I really want to do at the moment that will save me some pain and suffering here. We're just going to take a minor digression. I'm going to add this little snippet that says for a global set key, whenever you hit escape, it's going to run this keyboard escape quit command. And that's going to be really useful for keeping me from going crazy because I keep hitting escape because I'm used to using escape all the time. So let's say if we open find file and I want to get out of that, one way to do that, I think, is to hit Control G. But another way would be to hit escape now that we've got this bound. So if I do this again, hit escape, it will cancel out that mini buffer prompt, which is pretty helpful if you are familiar with Vim key bindings. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So back to Ivy, let's see. I really want to find where that configuration is because I'm pretty sure I did not set that up myself. It must be built into console. I think if I just install console, maybe it works. If anybody in the chat knows, just let me know. Okay, I think that it must just be by default in console. So I'm gonna load console. So the thing to know about Ivy is that the base functionality is contained within the Ivy package, and it gives you this sort of buffer completion. In fact, let me just show you what it looks like before I move any further. If I were to run Ivy find file, I think, or is it? Okay, is console here? Console's here. Console find file. Then we get this better completion buffer at the bottom, which lets us see what files are in the current directory, and we can also navigate the directories in a way that makes sense. That was not intended. And like if I wanted to go to the readme.org, I just use my arrow keys to go to readme.org and press enter, and then it will open that file. So that does end up being helpful, or really helpful, for navigating your file system quickly, especially if you get some custom key bindings set up to make it more easy to use. So now we're going to try to get the default binding set up, and I'll show you what buffer switching looks like with Ivy. So if I run console switch buffer, then I can switch over to, interesting, okay, I'll try that in a second. So I will switch back to init.el. All right, so Vincent says that he doesn't have anything special for find file. He just runs Ivy mode 1 and it sets everything up. Curiously, it did not do that for me, but let's try running it directly now, if this works. All right, so yes, that's correct. So all we need to do is run Ivy mode 1, and by running that major mode, it's going to set up all the key bindings necessary at a global level for the default Emacs key bindings for finding files, switching buffers, etc. All the sort of common things that you would need to do. So to prove that for switching buffers, I'm going to use, oh, let's get the command window back. I don't know why that disappeared. CLM, yeah. Now see how much easier this is? MX is another big one. So anytime you see someone talking about MX, the M in the front, let me type that out so you know what I'm talking about. M-X. So, hey Alex. So M-X is a command binding name, but it has special significance in Emacs because this is like the main way that you would run an interactive command in Emacs. So the M stands for meta, but actually that maps to the Alt key in most keyboards. I don't really know what other keyboards might have that map to, but for me and for the majority of people that I've heard of, it's Alt. So if I press Alt X, we get this list now. And this is coming from Ivy also. It gives us this nice view of all of our commands. And I can run, which one was I trying to do? Council something? Council switch buffer? Yeah, so I could see, I could fuzzy match basically. If I just type out the command bits with spaces in between, I can switch for certain things. So if I type council switch buff, it gives me everything with those sort of substrings in it. So that can be really helpful for finding commands that you forgot the name of. If you just know like sort of what you're looking for, you might be able to triangulate it. So, now we've used switch buffer, and we can go up and down and go back to the init.el. So at this point, I mean, we've got a pretty decent little configuration going. There's some other things you can do, which I find really useful if you're sort of exploring a little bit to try to make Emacs look better. You can run a command called council, let's see, I'm going to type council theme. It's council load theme, if you can see this down here in the command list. If I run that, it gives me a list of all the custom themes that are available, and you'll see that there's some Doom themes here because I haven't isolated my my personal Emacs configuration folder with all my packages installed. So apparently we're seeing some things that shouldn't be here, but there is a small subset that are installed by default, and I believe Wombat is one of them. So actually, I think I like that theme better, so I might just stick with that one. So if I want to go and make that the default, I could go here to where, whoops, where I set Tango Dark, and then I can put this to Wombat. And then in my configuration, this should get loaded by default whenever I start up from now on. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. We have just a basic configuration. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about use package and how it works. Use package, in fact, we'll pull up the website. Emacs use package. Use package simplifies a lot of things that you need to do for configuring Emacs to use a package that you get from the package repository. If you were to try to download packages yourself from like a GitHub repository and then set them up, you would have to do a lot of extra coding work in your configuration file to require the package, to set up its mode, to setting key bindings, all kinds of stuff like that. With use package, it takes care of all that for you, which I find to be extremely useful. There are some other packages out there that will do things like this for you. I really haven't used them, but I might experiment with that some in this stream series because, I don't know, it would be interesting to try them out. But use package has been very solid for me for years, so I just kind of stick with it. So if you go look at their README, there's quite a lot of stuff here. It explains how to do a lot of things. But the most important stuff is just that you can just very simply just say use package with a package name, and it will just install it for you and make it available. And it does not load the package by default. Or it might load the auto loads for the package. So an auto load is basically a function that has a special signature on it in an Emacs list package that says, don't load my code at all until someone tries to run this function, and then load it on demand. So I think if the package has auto load set up, then this really doesn't hurt your startup time, because all it does is just try to install the package if it's not there already and then make it available to you. So the bare minimum usage is just that. You just have use package and the package name. Now, you might see that I have something called diminish here. I probably should take that out so you can see what it's like without it. But diminish, what that does is typically in Emacs, there is a mode line, which is this bar at the bottom of the screen. And this gives you details about your the mode that you're in, the file that you're editing, the line column that you're at whenever you're editing the file. It also says what minor modes you have active. And for some reason, oh, here it is. Yeah, this is the list of modes and minor modes. So the main major mode, I should explain that as well, but the main major mode is Lisp interaction mode, and there's a minor mode called LDoc installed or activated. So I think with the init.el file, normally Ivy would have its mode. Yeah, now that I evaluated Ivy mode, it's showing up here. I'm not exactly sure why this is not running by default on startup. I'll have to look into that. But, yes, that's probably why. So whenever I load up the Ivy mode, we'll see that it adds this Ivy down here. But if you, as you start to have a more, oh, thank you, dpassin. We want to re-enable the command log. So C toggle command log buffer. There we are. Thank you. So as you get more in depth in your Emacs customization, you're probably going to be using a lot of minor modes for a lot of different packages that are installed. And this list is going to get a lot longer, and it's going to take up more of your screen space, and it's going to be noisy. So what I like to do on certain packages is to diminish the mode, which does some stuff behind the scenes so that Emacs will not show the mode name in this list. I don't really know if people think that's a bad idea, but for me, I like to keep a very minimal view so that I don't have a lot of things distracting me whenever I'm using my editor or when I'm in my environment. So I try to diminish things that aren't necessary. So this is why I would add this diminish part here. It just keeps that Ivy out of the mode line. Also, you can see that there's this bind section, and this is super handy because otherwise you would have to do a lot of define key, or there's a lot of ways to bind key bindings in Emacs, but this happens to be a very straightforward way to do it, which I find to be very nice. So you'll have to look at the documentation for bind, because there's a lot of things it can do, but at the top level, what you can do is just say for the Command-S or Command-S key binding, I want you to call swiper. So if I was to hit Control S right now, did I say Command? Control S. Now that calls up swiper. Are you saying, Alex, it's difficult to read right now? Alex says that the bottom of the Emacs window is difficult to read. So this binding was set up whenever use package loaded Ivy. And there's also this idea of key bindings that are specific to certain modes, like a major mode or a minor mode, which right now you see there's the Ivy mini buffer map. That is a key binding that's only active for a very particular mode. So one thing I like to do for Ivy that makes it a lot more convenient for me is that whenever Ivy is displayed in the mini buffer, whenever we have that sort of selector list, I like to use Control-J, Control-K to select the next and previous line so that I don't have to leave my home row of keys. The way that I have my key binding set up in my Linux distribution is that I make caps lock work as a control key so that I have my hand on the home row all the time, and I can use my pinky on caps lock to do control instead of bending my finger down there. You've probably heard a lot of people talk about Emacs pinky, because if you have to keep hitting control all day long to do all these key chords and whatnot, it can be really taxing on your finger. If you do that simple little key binding switch where you replace caps lock with control, it makes your life a whole lot easier in Emacs. So I highly recommend doing that. It is possible to do that across Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. So at some point, if people want to know how to do that, I can add some instructions to the README of this repo so that you can see that. So Alex says that the bottom line is kind of half cut off. Let's see if I can fix that, if possible. Does anybody else notice that, where the bottom line is cut off of the screen capture? Can't tell. Yeah. Ah, okay. So it's a YouTube problem. All right, anyway, back to the story. So, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like with Ivy, and I think that the command log window here should be able to give us that information. I just hit escape and it disappeared. That's not cool. Let's pull that back up again. CLM toggle command log buffer. Apparently escape kills it. I need to find a way to make that not happen. So, thanks, Bruno. All right, so I'm going to pull up the console switch buffer command. Oh, actually, I can do it here. So now that I'm in this list, I can hit Control-J, Control-K to go up and down. So I don't have to use the arrow keys anymore to select these. I can just use Control-J, Control-K, and that helps me to navigate these without leaving the home row. And if you use a computer a lot all day, if you're a programmer and you're typing on the computer all day, the best thing you can do for your hands to not get super tired is to stay in one place and not jump around a lot or not contort your fingers to do key bindings. And also try not to reach to the mouse all the time either, or to the touchpad. So if you can avoid that as much as possible, which Emacs does enable in large part, you should try to do that because it will save your hands a lot. So we see now that we can do that. Unfortunately, this command window is not showing that, probably because it's in the mini buffer. Unfortunately, that's the case, but this thing keeps popping away. This is what happens whenever you just get like so used to Vim key bindings, is that you just hit escape all day long, just unconsciously, just to clear out whatever you're doing, and then it causes problems whenever you don't want it to. All right. So, I mean, I think that we've gotten to a pretty good place with this today. So moving forward, what would we want to do? So one big thing we can do to make this look better is to set our mode line to something more appealing. And if you see what I have in my setup, I have this nice, more minimal looking mode line that has a little bit of icons and some, nice fonts and colors and whatnot. That's Doom mode line. So if you use Doom Emacs, you probably are familiar with this already. If you've seen, oh, maybe you're right. Let's try that real quick. Global command log. So Deepasson says, or Deepasson, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your username wrong. It says that probably global command log mode needs to be run before the mini buffer commands will show up, and I believe you are correct. So if I go, yep, there we are. So I'm hitting Control-J in the list and Control-K, and it's going up and down. So very astute observation. I appreciate you telling me that. So going back to the mode line discussion, yeah, I find this to be very minimal, giving me only the information I need to be doing the work that I'm doing. I think the default mode line in Emacs is quite cluttered and kind of like really just looks old. I mean, it's all text, characters and stuff, and gives too much information. So for your ability to focus and also your sort of aesthetic pleasure, I guess you could say, having a more minimal mode line that has a nicer style can go a long way to making you feel more at home in Emacs. So we could try real quick to see if Doom mode line is easy to set up in this case. So I'm just going to go to the Doom mode line GitHub repo and see what happens there. Because I think that the default configuration is pretty good and integrates with a lot of packages that you might use. So it's a good place to start if you wanted to have a nicer looking mode line. They have a lot of screenshots for what Doom mode line can do, which is nice. Init, yes. All right, so we're going to copy just this little snippet here and throw it into our configuration file. And then I'm gonna execute that with Control-X, Control-E. All right, and basically right away it configures itself to look much nicer. So the one thing I can say about this is I find the height of the mode line to be a little bit tall for my pleasure to start with. There is a variable you can use to configure the height. I keep having to open this thing again. And I've had sort of varying success in using it. I mean, obviously you can see my mode line is not that tall. So I think there's a little bit of combination of setting the mode line height plus the font size for the mode line can help you to manage that size. Let's see what it says here, size or height. Okay, customizable mode line height. So if we were to set, I think that it's configure. So config, this is another thing in, okay, there are two things for use package I'll describe right quick whenever we do this, but let me just get this added really quickly. And in fact, let me look at my own configuration, emacs.org. So mode line height. Okay, 15, I have mine set to it, and it's in custom. All right, cool, it's like this. All right, so I'm gonna paste that in, and then we'll finish that out. Whoops. All right, cool. Unbalanced parentheses. This is what happens whenever you paste it in incorrectly. Also, we need something that will show us the parenthesis balance. Void function doom mode line height. Really? Oh, okay. I need to have an extra parenthesis around. This is why it was giving me problems. That's interesting. Let me see. What did I do wrong here? Custom. That's right. Okay, so config is wrong. We will try running this one more time. Okay, so I think that I need to restart Doom mode line for that to work. And it's hard to tell whether it actually did anything, but sometimes you actually have to go to a different buffer before you will see the effect of doing that. So if I were to go to another file, let's say I go to package.json file. Okay, it still seems to be fairly tall, but suffice it to say, there is some configuration capability there, and we won't worry too much about that right now. I mean, I think it looks pretty good as it stands. So one thing that you can see here is that we actually have an icon for Node.js or for NPM whenever we open a package.json file. So that's just one of the nice little niceties that that Doom mode line can give you. So I hope that with this little intro, I have convinced you that writing your own Emacs configuration is not that hard, and it doesn't take much code, and you can get something that looks really nice very quickly. This obviously is not organized very well. It looks kind of dirty, but there's a lot of things we can do to fix that up going forward. So we will look into that in future streams. I think maybe next time we will try to set up some other packages, possibly like Magit or other things that I find to be pretty useful. And please definitely give suggestions if you have other packages you would like to talk about in the future streams. Like either you can give them in the chat or ideally in the comments of the video after the stream is done, so that we kind of have a history of those, because the chat kind of disappears after the stream is gone. But yeah, for now, I think that we can call that finished for this stream. If you want to see the contents of this file, actually, I will show you one thing real quick as a little bonus at the end. I'm going to make a commit of these changes. I'll just back out of this Emacs right now and go back to my own. Let's not save that one. Yes, exit. Okay, so I will open up the init.el here. So this is the actual same file. And I'm going to use my key binding to pull up Magit status. And what this does is it gives us this buffer that tells us about the current status of our Git repository, and I'll show you what repository that is in a second. We have our untracked files here, and I want to commit my init.el, so I'm going to use my key binding for that, and actually I can pull up a nicer looking command log here, since I've set my stuff up correctly. Command log window. Yeah, okay. On this computer it's not working. It works on a different computer. We'll do that another time. So I'm going to stage this file for commit, and you can actually see that we have all the contents of the file here. Also, it helpfully shows me that I have some errant white space at the end of that line. So I'm going to get rid of that. And now I'm going to make a commit by hitting CC and initial commit of init.el. And I'm going to hit Control-C to finish that commit. I'm going to hit capital P, then P to push it to the repo. And then I'm going to put in my passphrase to do SSH auth against the repo. And now it's finished. So we can go over to the repo page. I've got this called, it looks like it's called Run Emacs, which if you've ever used Emacs on Windows, you've probably seen the Run Emacs command. But a coworker of mine, whenever he downloaded Emacs, hi Chris, he saw Run Emacs and he says, wow, this comes with RuneMax. So we're gonna call our custom configuration RuneMax, just as an homage to my coworker Chris. So now I'm gonna reload this page and you'll see that init.el is here. All the stuff that we worked on in this stream is available. So if you wanna go and take that and start hacking on your own configuration, please feel free. This is another place where you could file issues if you wanted to like ask questions or give feedback or like request certain packages to be given demonstrations of, etc. So please do feel free to like leave comment on the video or in this repo if you want to see more things in the future. So any final questions from the audience here before we end the stream today? By the way, thanks a lot for everyone showing up. It's really cool. I think this is the highest viewer count I've had on the stream yet. So it gives me a lot of confidence that Emacs is the way to go, at least in the short term on the streaming front. I'll give people a couple seconds just to ask any questions if they have any. Also, if you want to see a more complete system configuration that goes far more in depth on Emacs as a desktop environment and window manager, check out my .files repo. It's at github.com/davywheel/.files. And if you go down to the README here, I've kind of explained my principles and stuff, kind of lame. But it links to my different configuration files. So how I configure Emacs, how I configure my desktop environment, and how I configure my Linux distributions, all using Emacs, all using org mode. So if you were to go to my desktop environment configuration, you can see that I have a whole lot of stuff here that configures both Emacs packages and also things like Polybar and Dunst and other programs that kind of put this whole desktop environment together. And all these configuration bits actually are used in my system. They just get written out by org mode whenever I save changes to the file. So this file is like my source of truth whenever I am changing my system configuration, and then the sort of files that get created by that are sort of ancillary, and I still check them in, but they aren't really the ones that I added. I added my org mode files to configure all of my systems. So that's another interesting topic to talk about on another day. Bruno asks, maybe demo install projectile. Yes, that's a great point. I should do that probably on one of the next couple streams. So yeah, we will definitely talk about projectile. If you do coding with Git repositories of various different types of languages and whatnot, you definitely want to use projectile. Okay, well, I think I've had your attention for about an hour now, so I'm going to go ahead and call it here. But thank you again so much for joining us today. I hope to see you at the next stream. I'm going to target possibly Monday, possibly Wednesday for the stream, so just keep a lookout for that. Subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified whenever new streams are scheduled or started on the channel. If you hit subscribe, also hit the bell as well, because sometimes YouTube doesn't send out the notifications. I don't know why it does that, but just make sure you hit the bell in case you want to be notified whenever the new live streams are coming. But anyway, thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you next time. Happy hacking.